I suppose you have to give Preston North End some credit for a top 10 finish last season because that's what the results that's what the results dictate. But it feels like it feels a bit simplistic, I guess, to say that that's the starting point with which the Lilywhites go into the summer because they won 6 in their first 7 last season. A lot of them were narrow wins decided by moments of individual quality, like Mads Frokjær Jensen provided a few of them. And after that, it was actually bottom 6 form for North End for the remaining 39 games. So to say they're a top 10 side going into this season, I think might be a little bit misleading, possibly, with all the respect to them for what they achieved last season and having achieved safety so early for a side operating on a low budget. But fans weren't necessarily over the moon with the way the team was playing for large parts of last season. So you might say that a drop-off is likelier than progression into the playoff places. But they've got a good core of professionals there. They've still got the likes of Ben Whiteman and Jordan Story and Liam Lindsay, and we know Mads Frokjær Jensen can produce moments of magic. So can North End possibly even try? Well, how do North End try and kick on from that 10th place position and challenge for the playoffs, or even achieve another top half finish? A lot to discuss then in terms of how the Lancashire club remain competitive in the Championship. Let's get on to it in this summer deep dive. Yes, welcome along to this EFL Debate Summer Deep Dive, one of 72 we're doing across the EFL between mid-June and mid-July, club by club. That is the full set for League 2 uploaded to YouTube and to Spotify, so go and check those out and get yourself subscribed because that would help us out a lot. For now, I'm delighted to be joined by Ollie Hargreaves from the Butter Pie podcast of Preston North End. Afternoon, Ollie. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me. Was it were Preston North End in a bit of a false position last season in being a top 10 side?
I mean, realistically, you could probably say yes and no to that question. As you mentioned, obviously, in the start and the introduction, in types of the season, in an area of it, we were in the top 6 side. And then in other areas, we were a bottom 6 side. So I think it probably evens itself out. I wouldn't say we're consistent enough to be a top 10 side. We're consistently average, as to say the least, but very inconsistent in the way that we do it. It can go one or two ways, Gab. I think personally around about 10th to 14th was probably the situation we found ourselves in last season, where you could be any one of those teams, and I'd thought, you know what, that's probably suited us to a T. But the way that we move forward from this now, can we make those good performances stick consistently rather than going on the dive like we did for 20 odd games, which was obviously very unacceptable.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, do you think that because I could imagine there's people within the club that would watch me talk about Preston North End and say it was a sort of false position or not quite reflecting the state of play, and say that's actually very disrespectful. And I do kind of understand that, because I do understand, like, if you finish 10th having a bottom 6 budget, like, that is a creditable achievement, and I do really want to recognise that. I don't want to sort of brush that aside easily. And I suppose it was motivation a difficult thing once it got to a stage, Ollie, when you probably weren't going to challenge for the playoffs, and you probably weren't going to go down however many points off relegation. Was it difficult, I guess, to did motivation become a problem, and was that a factor in the performances in the second half of last season?
I feel a lot of, especially in the final running, I feel that's where North End lets themselves down. When there's nothing to play for and we know we've been brushed aside, you can tell the motivation in the players. They're not really fighting for anything. The main game was Norwich. I thought we played fairly well against Norwich. When we ended up losing 1-0 in the last minute. And that was the type that just broke. Well, it broke the camel's back, really, and everything just went downhill after that. And then you lose your last 6 out of 7, and you come into the summer in a dampener. As you mentioned there, you talk about a false position as well, and to be fair, I think quite a lot of people may look at it as it being that, but to give credit to the club, they have actually improved on the last season's points tally year on year, especially under Ryan Lowe. So I have to give credit for that. But as you mentioned, it's hard to motivate a side when there's nothing to play for. I think, especially with North End, the battle of 11th is like the main thing that we get ourselves up to with Bristol City every season. So for players, if there's nothing to play for, there's hardly enough motivation. And obviously with the fans, if there's no inkling of playoffs or when we're out of the relegation battle, then it's kind of like a pre-season at the end of the season.
Yeah. Where are Preston North End at structurally as a club, do you feel, Ollie?
It's hit and miss. There's no way we should have allowed someone like Alan Brown to walk away, and there should have been a structure built in place by the ownership and the manager for players like Alan Brown, and allowing our best assets to just run down our contracts. Fair play to the club recently, including incomings and transfers. We've obviously looked abroad and stuff, brought in players like Madge Frockier, Militin Osmaic, and obviously Liam Miller last season. But I think one thing that does frustrate me structurally is we just allow our players run down their contracts. There's a structure at Peterborough where McAnthony, obviously, he transfer lists his players when they're not going to sign a contract within the last 12 months. And I think that's what stops North End from advancing quite a lot, because we are a selling club. We have to be a selling club. We sold, obviously, Robinson, Hugh Gill, Cunningham. That's going so far back. I can't remember the last big sale we really had besides them.
Davis?
Yeah, well, Davis was only about 1.5 million.
He
was in the last 6 months of his contract. You got Ben Pearson as well, who went to Bournemouth. He went for Bournemouth for 500k when he was arguably the best, defensive midfielder in the Championship at the time. So we're losing out on a lot of money, and if we're not able to reinvest that money, if we, when the players do leave for the price tag that we obviously have for them, it just seems a bit like, what's the point? But to be fair to the club, I feel like they have listened recently, and we are starting to get back on track. Obviously, with Ben Whiteman getting a new contract, obviously nailing down Ali McCann as well. There's a lot of contracts coming up at the end of next summer, Emil Rees and stuff. So you start to wonder how we're going to try and manage it. And I just hope we don't leave it to the last minute again like we did with Alan Brown.
Yeah, let's hope not. Do you feel like there's been some question marks over the club previously from a point of view of the pathway, first of all, from the academy to the first team, although that's a little bit better now, I guess, with the emergence of players like Liam Best coming into the equation, but also from a sort of from a recruitment standpoint. But again, you've been able to pick up, you've been delved into the European market a little bit more. So is there a sense that the club is starting to learn a few structural lessons?
Yeah, I'd like to say so, in terms of, especially in the recruitment in the foreign markets. In terms of the academy, there's been a lot of talk, and I know the club are wanting to get it moved up to Category 2.
Right.
But obviously you need certain requirements, like you need an indoor dome for a Category 2. And I think that's obviously a meeting point of where we're a bit like, why should we need to do this just to be able to become a Category 2 side? I mean, in terms of the academy, we've had a few that have come through that have been okay. Josh Earl, obviously Ben Davis is a massive one. Josh Brownhill quite a bit ago. And then you obviously mentioned Kean Best there, who's come in. Although I do think he needs a loan this season to get some game time. The players are all right. But you've got academies around us. You've got a Blackburn, you've got a Burnley, the top category sides. You've got the main clubs. So I feel it's very hard for North End to be able to pick up great youth players and bring them into the top starting 11.
On the other hand, Ollie, the Northwest is a hotbed of talent.
Yeah,
So, and you're also able to pick up clubs that might have
absolutely.
might drop out of, say, a Manchester United, a Manchester City, a Liverpool. So you're in a good position. You know, you've got disadvantages, but you've also got advantages as well, as opposed to an area like Carlisle where
Yeah.
you've got full reign of everywhere, but there's not as much. There's not as many players there.
Well, it's funny you should say that. We ended up picking up a lad about 2 or 3 seasons ago from Manchester City called Tyrese Dolan. Now, he then got released at the end of his 16 to 18, and ended up obviously going to Rovers. We just don't have that structure in place. We don't have an under-21s. It goes under 18s first team, and it's a massive jump to just go from there to there. Obviously, we've gone into the Central League, but it's not really, youth team football.
Do you think, Ollie, because Trevor Hemmings sadly passed away a couple of years ago, didn't he? And it's now Craig Hemmings as owner. Is there a sense that Craig Hemmings is more aware of what's required for Preston North End to try and move forward in those sorts of issues, or do you think that he's a little bit different? Or
Craig's a massive PNE fan. After having spoken to him, he's very influential in the team. Obviously, him and Peter Ridsdale worked together to be able to, come with ideas. And obviously, after speaking with them last year, they have different opinions for certain things as well. So I do,
which is good because you don't want a
absolutely,
what's the word, a bubble, if you like, or a
absolutely,
something along those lines where you just regurgitate different people's opinions.
Yeah, I do think they want the best thing for Preston North End. I do 100% believe that, and we're actively looking for a buyer for the club. That they've announced that once someone comes in with the right credentials and stuff. Obviously, Kirchner came in, and obviously, I wonder how that went.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's so funny. I was really excited about Chris Kirchner initially, and then it turned out that he was a bit dodgy.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's been rumours around. Obviously, there's been nothing put out there. But the Hemmings family have said, that they've got our full backing until someone comes and wants to take over the reins of Preston North End. So you have to give full credibility to them for doing so, and wanting to forward us as much as they can as a football club under their tenure.
So just to kind of so do we have a confidence that there is going to be
Yeah. So currently, they're trying the best for Preston North End, and they want to put Preston North End in the best place possible they can for when someone else takes over the reins.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, hopefully they can start to modernise things. I do think that for whoever next comes in, introducing an under-21 side would be absolutely massive step forward. So Ryan Lowe then, Ollie. I think we've got to give him lots of credit for it was top 10 form when he first took charge at North End midway through 21-22, was it? And then now where were we? Second season, I think it was about 14th that you finished, wasn't it?
Yep.
In 22-23, and then last season 10th. So again, I think this is somebody who's delivered consistent results with North End. You don't do that by accident. Clearly, he's got something about him. Clearly, he's been able to organise this side as well. At the same time, maybe there are a few question marks levelled at him last season, and maybe the feeling of support for Ryan Lowe isn't as unanimous as maybe an outsider might expect.
Yeah, it's very hit and miss. It's quite a split decision on Ryan Lowe in terms of the fan base. Quite a lot of, I'm unsure. He could potentially still be 50-50 for whoever wants him in and out. The thing with Ryan Lowe, which I think is sometimes his downfall, is he likes to back himself a lot, and obviously likes to speak out about how he likes to play and how he wants his team to play. And then obviously the expectation is there that you're going to fulfill what you're saying. However, I don't believe that's been done. There's been talk of obviously the brand of football, and it comes out that he wants fast flowing attacking football. It's probably far from it at Preston North End last season, and going all the way back as well. So obviously fans become frustrated. You're saying one thing and delivering the other. At the end of the day, as Bielsa said, football's for entertainment. If you're not entertained at a football match, then you just don't watch. So I feel like you have to give the credit for where credit's due. He's beaten his points tally. And we're starting, well, I mean, obviously, since he's come in, we've not had players in positions that he's been required for since he's come in. We've not had an actual wing back. We've had Lee Miller, who plays as a winger at wing back. And we've had Brad Potts, who's a centre midfielder at wing back. So hopefully this season, if he does get the players that he's been asking for, obviously it's been a good start to the summer with, Sam Greenwood and I'm not even going to try and pronounce this Icelandic guy's name. I'm just going to call him Big Steve. It looks like we're onto something. So there can't be really any excuses. I can see you try to find the actual.
I actually missed that signing, so
we haven't announced it yet. It's got to be announced today.
Okay.
Obviously, I saw someone on PNE online call him the South Ribble Romano. George Hodgson, who's the PNE reporter, he's announced that the medical's today, and it will be signed. I think he plays from Silkeborg in Denmark, but obviously shopping the Danish market has dealt well for us recently in Emil Rees and Mads Frockier, so hopefully it carries on that way. But yeah, we need some wing backs, need some centre backs who can actually play with the ball at their feet, and then there'll be no excuses for the brand of football.
Right, yeah. So you would say that you would put that down as the main reason why you weren't able to play the kind of football that you were hoping for last season, because you didn't have the quality of defenders required to play that way.
The way that Ryan Lowe wants to play is he's very strict in the way that he wants to play. He came out and said, I believe, so don't quote me on this, but I believe that it was around about that he's not going to change.
I am going to quote you on this because you said this on a podcast.
He's not going to change the system. He's going to change the players.
Okay.
So what the players he wants to do, like he's playing Jordan Story as a wide centre half, and he's expecting him to overlap. He's not really an overlapping centre half. As so you look at obviously Andrew Hughes, who was a fullback who's turned into a left centre back, who's more able to get down, obviously the left hand side and overlap, underlap, and be able to put crosses in the box. Yeah. Jordan Story's not like that, and I feel like you had Andrew Hughes and Liam Miller on the left, and you had Jordan Story and Brad Potts, who you've got.
Yeah, so that's a bit lopsided, isn't it? It's like you've got a big threat on the left and then not much on the right. So presumably, Ollie, opposing sides basically nullified your left side and allowed you to sort of funnel the ball over to the right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Obviously, that's where it comes to terms, because even Mads Frockier, he did like to drift out to the left as well.
Yeah.
So all of our.
Yeah, if you think of that goalie set up at Plymouth Argyle, that was from him drifting out to the left, wasn't it?
Absolutely. So once teams just nullify the left hand side, you've got the right hand side open, but then you've got Brad Potts, who, fair enough, he's done a very good job, but he's not an attacking threat as a like of Liam Miller.
And then the only other right wing back you got, Ollie, is Josh Seary, who's another youngster.
Exactly. So you need what we have on the left hand side. Obviously, with Liam Miller leaving, we're needing a new left wing back. We're needing that on the right as well. So we're going to need a new right wing back and probably an out and out, ball playing centre half who can actually get up to the line, cross the ball in. Someone like Andrew Hughes, but on the right hand side.
Jack Watmore, Ollie, to what extent can he be a solution to some of these challenges that North End are facing?
I don't think he's the answer for a wide centre half. He's a good player, but his main position is in a back four, and he allows us to play that when obviously we do need to change the system. Ryan Lowe has been known to play a back four and change to a back four, obviously, when we're getting overrun in midfield. And Jack Watmore allows that. Unfortunately, I believe his only position in the back three is the central centre half, which is obviously taken up by Liam Lindsay, who's been our best, our best performer probably for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard to try and push out Liam Lindsay at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's probably more ball playing than Story, but obviously I feel like that issue is going to be fixed this summer by bringing in someone new.
So Ollie, can I just stop you there? Because then you've basically got, so you play with a back three, and yet the centre-backs that I've listed here, Patrick Bauer, Liam Lindsay, Jordan Story, Andrew Hughes, and Jack Watmore, four of them are better as a middle centre-back than a wide centre-back, and then there's Andrew Hughes.
Yeah.
So you're playing with a back three and you're relying on your wide centre backs to be able to get forward and join up with the attack. And supposedly that's what Ryan Lowe wants. And yet that's not what the listing of the squad says, or the types of defenders you've got.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. Obviously you did mention Pat Bauer there. I cannot see him being a Preston North End player. He was told last year that he wasn't really wanted at Preston North End.
Mm-hmm.
We thought that was the last year of his contract. But apparently, in the first year of his contract, there was a clause that got triggered to mean he got an extra year. So instead of him being out of contract this year, he's got a whole another year as well. So we're hopefully going to find him a team because he's a great servant for the club. I'd really hate to see Pat, just sit 2 years on the bench at Preston North End because it's not what he deserves.
But then, if we look at the other centre halves, so you basically got, even if Patrick Bauer goes, you've got Liam Lindsay, Jordan Story, and Jack Watmore competing for one spot, and that's if you're able to, in the idealistic way that you're able to have players who can, you're able to get the wide centre backs in the. You need to be able to play that way. So is there going to be more outgoings? Like, is there a world where Jordan Story goes, or is there a world where, how do Liam Lindsay and Jack Watmore is a bit of a dilemma, because Watmore might actually be better for the way that you want to play stylistically. But Liam Lindsay's so reliable. Sorry. Go on.
I just can't see him dropping Liam Lindsay. I think it's because he's been a mainstay in the defence. The way that I look at it is you're going to have Andrew Hughes for the left centre-back. He's our only left centre-back at the moment. There's not really anyone else there who can play a wide left centre-back.
And Kean Best could fill in there.
Kean Best could fill in there. But I think, if you're Kean Best, you need to go out and get out-and-out game time.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think in Preston North End's position with a low budget, for someone that's been able to proven that they can make a reasonable contribution at championship level, and they have massive sell-on potential if they do well at this level, I'm not sure I would loan him out. I would probably keep him as part of the squad, because I think you've got to be a bit selfish in your position, because it's not easy to get players that can make a difference at championship level.
I'd like to keep him. I just know that Ryan Lowe won't play him. Ryan Lowe, I think there was some study. We weren't study, but there was some factual about it, about North End's I think it was under 21s and the amount of minutes played, and it was so low, it was unbelievable. It was I can't think of anyone under the age of 21 that had played for Preston North End last season other than Kean Best.
No.
So for me, we've loaned out players such as Ben Davis. You load out players such as, John Hugo, I believe, and he went to Hartlepool and he came back stronger. And I feel like if they aren't going to get game time, realistically, I can't see him playing because Ryan Lowe won't play him. I'd play him. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to play him because he's dead ball specialist. He's brilliant with whipping the balls in. He's a ball-playing centre-half who can get down the wing. It's perfect, but is he ready yet? And is he ready for Ryan Lowe? And I'm just not sure that he'll take the plunge and just give Kean Best his starting position. But you've got Hughes / Best. Then you've got Lindsay and Watmore for the central centre half. And then obviously you're going to have a new right centre half, I would guess. And then you have Story probably backing him up. But then again, you look at Jordan Story, is he going to want to be a second backup? Sheffield Wednesday wanted him back last season. He's a great centre half at this level. Maybe he's just being played out of his. Well,
he wouldn't want to be back at right centre back. He certainly wouldn't want to be a third choice, but option in middle centre back. So it's a really tough situation. So yeah, maybe offloading Jordan Story could be the best thing for all parties.
Yeah.
Freddie Woodman, Ollie. How highly do you rate him as a goalkeeper?
I like Woodman. I think he had one of the toughest seasons he's had in a long time last season. The first season he came in, he was superb for us. And we were thinking, his distribution's fantastic. Obviously, PNE have notoriously had, good goalkeepers recently. You've had Iverson, who was fantastic for us. And then you go on to Woodman, and his first season, he was superb. His distribution was fantastic. And in the second season, he's kind of slowed down a bit. He's obviously not the most commanding goalkeeper. He's not the biggest, he's not the tallest. And I felt like sometimes he was probably not out of his depth, but he played very poorly in a couple of games that let him down. He did end up getting dropped for a game in mid-season because of how poorly he played. And it was Di Cornell that came in against Swansea, obviously, when we lost 2-1. For me, obviously, this is the last year of his contract as well. You've got to make a decision on Freddie Woodman as well. Are you going to offer him a new deal? If not, you've got to offload him, because there's going to be teams that are going to be wanting, a championship quality keeper for, a decent price. There's no point us just letting Freddie Woodman just run down his contract again, because, he's a £1-2 million player. Realistically, Freddie Woodman, and you can't at North End's level, what £1-2 million is massive money. You can reinvest it still, and that's kind of what we've got to get up with that situation. But for me, I'd offer him a new contract and see what happens. But obviously, if someone comes in for him with a decent amount, then we may have to look elsewhere.
Happy with Di Cornell as backup?
Yeah, he's a superb. I think the club are massively happy with him as well. He's a solid keeper, when he comes in and plays a couple of cup games as well. And he seems to really push Freddie to obviously want to keep his spot, especially after having come in against Swansea. He seems a really good chap as well. Obviously winning quite a lot of community awards. So yeah, very happy with him.
Perfect. So right wing back, we've spoken about Brad Potts, who's been right wing back for at least a couple of years now, and again, that does feel like an area that's overdue a bit of surgery. I don't know if you know much about Josh Theory, but needless to say, that looks like a real an area that you've got to prioritise this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been screaming out for a right wing back since obviously he came in. Brad Potts has done well out there. Don't get me wrong; he's done a real job out there. But for the type of player that Ryan Lowe wants to play, he's not that type of player. He's consistent in what he wants to do, and he's great at what he does. But obviously, for what you want in a right wing back, it's probably not the features that are the best. Obviously, he's scoring that great goal against Blackpool. That volley from outside the box, superb from right wing back. I have him there every day of the week. But he needs some surgery, as you mentioned. We're needing, some exciting players. Obviously, Liam Miller said he'd love to come back, but he wants to play at wing, which is fair enough. We've been linked to a couple of wing backs as well. Obviously foreign as well, which means that we're obviously looking in the right areas for me, because I feel like the English market's just totally blown out of proportion.
Yeah.
So, hopefully we're bringing someone excited. There's a likely a Miller, but obviously for the right-hand side, which if you remember me saying quite a lot of times last season, we need a Liam Miller for the right wing back.
Yeah.
So, we're needing two of them this season. We're needing a right wing back and a left wing back. So, hopefully we get them done.
You need Liam Miller and Liam Miller, but you're not going to have Liam Miller, just to clarify.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, we had a bid rejected for Harrison Burrows as well at left wing back. So, it seems...
I would have thought he would be a bit out of your price range, to be honest, Ollie, in terms you're not going to pay a 7-figure fee, I don't think.
Well, you'd be surprised. We paid
Really?
$2 million for Osmites last year.
Okay, yeah, fair.
So the thing with North End, what they've started to do is they've started to. I think obviously this year is the first year that FFP resets. So it's been said that Ryan Lowe is going to be backed as much as he can be this summer. Obviously, last summer we brought in Mads Frockyar and Osmic for a combined about 3.5 million. So, if he's going to be backed more than 3.5 million. Let's say a round ball figure of 4.5, which is for North End drastic money. We spent 600. Well, we spent nothing on Sam Greenwood, but obviously we have an option to buy within the loan, which could be a great deal for us. And then we've brought in obviously Big Steve, who's going to be announced later on for 600.
Where does Big Steve play?
He plays centre midfield. He's 6'3", and he's a direct replacement for Alan Brown. He's in 8 and box midfielder, so he brings something different.
Okay, so he could complement Whiteman quite nicely then.
Yeah, and I believe that the formation that he's wanted to play is going to be a 3-4-2-1.
Yeah.
And he's going to have either Osmic or Reese up top. He's going to have Mads on the left a bit. He'll play Greenwood just a bit on the right, and then obviously you've got Big Steve and
who just got a bit on the right. Greenwood, did you say?
Greenwood, yeah.
I'm Greenwood, yeah, okay.
And then you probably Greenwood or Dwayne Holmes that he's probably going to mix and match with, and then obviously you'll have Whiteman, probably this Big Steve. And then you've got the wing backs to sort out, and then you've got your centre backs. So it's exciting attack. To be fair, you get these wing backs sorted, and you've got a front three of Osmic, who's its second season. You've got Mads Frockyar, you've got Sam Greenwood, who can. Well, what he showed at Murray, he's hit and miss, but when he's on it, he's on it.
I tell you what, I like the idea of Greenwood and Frockyar Jensen is whenever I've seen Sam Greenwood, he seems to be a very selfless runner that's happy to run away from the general direction of play to create space for the players, as well as coming up with some big numbers as well. So I think he could complement Mads quite nicely because Mads is someone who's like giving the ball and he's going to create magic with it. So I think for me, you've got Greenwood with his movement and then Mads Frockyar sort of exploiting that space. And then hopefully you'd get someone like Jakobsen or Osmic occupying defenders as well. So hopefully that dynamic could grip this in the wing backs as well. I'm starting to get excited now. I'm talking about it. I'm talking myself into it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, will Preston North End reach playoffs? No, they're winning it. Oh, okay. So yeah, but the big thing now is the defence. It's been needed to be mended for quite some time. Obviously, you've got great defenders at the back, but they're not suited to the system that Ryan Lowe's play.
Yeah, that makes sense. So midfield, Ryan Ledson and Ali McCann, where are they at the moment?
I like Alan McCann. He comes in, does a job. He always does a job for us when he comes in. So I'd like to see obviously Alan McCann probably stay within the squad, and then obviously help out when needs to be, because when you're needing a player to man mark a defender or man mark a midfielder, or make sure he's there and everywhere and intercepting balls. He's the player that you play. Obviously, this Big Steve guy, he's more of a 8 and 10, so he likes to take the ball and go forward. So the two different players. As for Ryan Ledson, I don't think. Putting this nicely, he's very good when he's on it. don't get me wrong, he's very solid when he's on it, and he can be one of the best players. But he's been inconsistent for quite a lot of the time, and I think he's not going to get as much game time next season as you'd probably want as a midfielder at his age at 26.
Yeah.
So I'd probably be looking to move him on.
Okay.
There was an opportunity there, obviously that suits both parties. He's got a year left on his contract, and I'm unsure if the club would obviously offer him a new deal.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the likes of Noah Warney, Kamara, Kean Taylor coming through in terms of midfielders, whether that's
Yeah.
going to influence the situation with Ledson as well.
Yeah, you've got Noah Warney, who obviously played a couple of games last season, obviously against your Birmingham as well. He played a bit there. So obviously Noah Warney's starting to get trusted more, obviously the son of Ewell. So yeah, it's got a couple of exciting young players in Noah Mawani, and he's got his brother as well. I can't remember his first name. I'll remember it straight after this. And then obviously you've got Kean Best as well, left centre back. So we've got a couple of good youngsters at the moment. But obviously, as you mentioned, what does that mean for Ryan Ledson? I think he'd be a very, very good player for a high-end League One side.
Leighton Stewart, Ollie, came off the bench 16 times in the league last season, but didn't start once.
Yeah.
Is he getting to a stage where he's going to want some starts?
Yeah, he's going to want some starts. I remember in January, he was very heavily linked with a lot of League One clubs for a move in January, but he chose to stick it out and try and obviously force his way into the starting 11. He's looked sharp when he's come on. He has looked sharp. I just don't think he's got that, killer instinct as of yet to be able to, consistently get goals at this level. So I'd expect Leighton Stewart to go out and get some, obviously much needed first team football, because, you're 22, 23 now, and, you're needing first team football, and, you're needing to get onto the pitch and get 90 minutes out of him. So if one club did come back in for him, I'd expect him to go out on loan.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, again, he's probably one that's going to want some minutes. Whereas I think for somebody like Rodriguez Gentile, he wouldn't mind being the Leighton Stewart of last season, where it is just substitute appearances for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with Rodriguez Gentile as well, he's still so young. I think he's
17 or 18 or something.
17 or 18, exactly. So if he's able to get, he's training with the first team. If he's able to get a couple of minutes, then, winner. Obviously, you've seen that with Chris Rigg at Sunderland, such a young age, keep within the squad, and, you're able to give him a couple of minutes. Kudos to you.
Was he Argentina under 20s or something really funky like that? I can't quite remember.
So he's a dual national with Argentina and Brazil. So it's a good mix, Don't get me wrong, but he played for, I can't believe.
Yeah, Argentina and 17s. I've just found that. I mean, that is even like that. Just seems such a sexy.
Rodriguez Gentile. Yeah, he plays for Preston North End.
Yeah,
it's a bit mad, but hopefully he gets a couple of minutes. He's still young, so he needs to obviously build out as into a championship footballer. But he's making the right moves. He's obviously still a bit small, but he reminds me of like a little Tevez, where he's able to, obviously small, but he's able to receive it into feet and roll defenders. So hopefully he gets a bit of game time this season. But I'd expect him to stay within the squad.
Well, we'll see. So in terms of expectations for Preston North End this season, Ollie, do we want to see, is stylistic progression whilst being competitive in terms of results, and is it about stylistic and developmental progression whilst avoiding a relegation battle? Would that make a good season for North End?
I think what would be a good season for North End is to beat the points tally that we have from last season. Although style is one thing, points are more, or the points on the board are much more. I'd rather us play terrible and win 1-0 than be fantastic and draw 2-2.
But then you finished 10th last season, and it's not like the feeling at the club is great, we're going to build on 10th. So I'm almost wondering, is it better to lay better foundations, even if the results on paper aren't quite as good, but to feel like, yes, we've got a style of play. Yes, what Ryan Lowe's saying in terms of how he wants to play matches up with what we're seeing, and we can see a vision of how we can build forward. Whereas at the moment, it's like, yes, the results were great, but I still don't see a pathway yet immediately for Preston North End to try and challenge for the playoff spots, which I think in the medium term has got to be your ambition.
I agree, but I feel like the club want to win, and they want to win now. Ryan Lowe wants to win now. I remember him coming in at the start when he obviously came in. He said, "If I can't do it within 3 to 4 seasons, then I'm going to move on and let someone else have a go." So obviously this is now his 3rd season as well. I'm guessing that's why he doesn't obviously look towards the youth players or bring in younger players. Albeit I'd love to, because you play Keane Best, and you could potentially sell him on for you see the prices of youngsters that are now playing the Premier League. So if you're able to build them up to that kind of ability, then win-win. But I feel like Preston North End are wanting to win, and they're wanting to win now.
Is that the correct approach, though, focusing on the fruit rather than the root?
Probably not. I feel like it's all gung ho. If it doesn't go right, then where could we be? But to be fair, we've looked elsewhere. When Ryan Lowe's come in, before Ryan Lowe, I think the furthest we looked away was Ireland. And we've started to delve into the foreign markets a lot more, which I've been banging the drum on about so many times. So we're getting a lot more quality from the foreign markets, which is good, and I feel like that's a real good stepping stone that we've made. I just feel like, obviously, as you mentioned, there's other things that we're needing to obviously prioritise before we're able to go to the playoffs. I just feel like Ryan Lowe and the team are probably wanting just to do it here and now, rather than just build the foundations for a better push maybe in a couple of years' time.
Interesting. So if we were to say, if we were to look at a side that can finish in the top half again, because I think we've got to be slightly realistic, how many players have Preston North End got for a starting 11 where you would say you're super confident? I mean, we can work through the 11. Would you put Woodman in that bracket?
I'd put Woodman in the bracket of a top half side.
Okay. So we've said Lindsay, haven't we? We've said you need one right-sided centre back. Would you put Andrew Hughes in that bracket? Left centre back?
No, I wouldn't put Hughes now.
Okay. Right wing back, we know that you need to add there. Ben Whiteman presumably would be a tick next to his name.
I did Ben Whiteman. Yeah. Question marks on Big Steve. Obviously, we've not seen him play yet.
Okay.
But
it's hard to be too bullish on him without really knowing him. So, but hopefully,
we'll put a question mark next to it.
Okay.
Left wing back, you need to obviously improve.
Yeah.
And then obviously you've got the front three. Mab's obviously top half. Absolutely, it's magnificent. You've got Reese and Osmaich.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, I'd probably be happy with both for top half.
Okay.
Osmaich has shown glimpses, especially against Huddersfield in that 16-minute cameo, that he can do it.
Okay.
And if we're able to play to his strengths, in terms of obviously, I feel like with 2 10s, especially in Greenwood and in Mad, I feel like that'll help a lot more.
I'll vouch for Greenwood in terms of top half. I think that's a good addition. So what we've come to in terms of best 11, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ticks there, plus the question mark over Big C, because it's hard. It would be unfair to say one way or the other. So that leaves us with about four positions that would probably need strengthening. So those are definitely the right-sided centre half. I think there's a reasonable case for Andrew Hughes, but maybe an upgrade there. Although I would say that's desired rather than required. And then definitely the 2 wing-back spots. So really, actually, when you look at it, it's the right centre-back spot and it's the 2 wing-back spots and maybe Andrew Hughes. So those 4 areas, I mean, if you can get the right additions in those 4 areas, then actually you're not too far off.
I agree. So is this the way? But I mean, as it's happened in many years, we've not recruited, a right wing back. We've not recruited a left wing back. Brad Potts played 40 games at right wing back, and obviously ended up injuring himself. So, let's see.
It's one of those where I think the right additions could definitely put you in that top half. But if there's a position in here that you don't strengthen, I'm less fussed about left centre back because I think Kean Best could cover, and I don't mind Andrew Hughes.
Yeah.
But certainly for right centre back and the two wing back spots, it's like if you don't get the right addition or if you don't strengthen those positions at all, one of those positions at all, then that's the thing that could break the whole chain. So I think those three positions are absolutely going to be huge.
I think the wing backs especially. I think you could probably. I mean, you could probably get away with having Jordan Storey and Andrew Hughes at left centre back and right centre back if you had like very good right wing back and left wing back. I think you could probably scrape about 9th or 10th with that. If you wanted to progress anymore and progress as a club and try to push to sneak in at 6th place, you've got to be bringing in players that are able to, at right centre half and then desirable at left centre half if Andrew Hughes obviously is fit for it.
Do you know what, Ollie? It's so odd because I was talking to a Cardiff fans yesterday about why they had they conceded 70 goals when actually they rated the defenders quite highly, and it's funny how we're talking about Preston North End needing to try and score more goals, and yet we rate some of the attacking players. We actually don't mind some of the attacking players. So it's actually a lot of the time, it's like when you have defensive issues, it can be about are your attacking players doing enough against the ball, or have you got outlets and that kind of thing. And then when you've got attacking problems, it can often be, have you got the ball players at the back? So it's funny how it's not as obvious as it seems when it comes to squad building, isn't it?
It is. I feel like obviously in terms of the front three, especially, last season you had practically Mads and then Reece, and then the rest were just there was no support. We'd be attacking with 3, and you're just going to get found out, and they're just isolated as forever. So if you're able to fix the team around them and push forward as a team, more attack more with like 6 or 7, then it complements it perfectly. So fingers crossed this season we're more attacking from the back and we're able to fill the gap left that was wide open last season.
Ollie, what's the biggest reason to believe that Preston North End can meet their ambitions this season?
The recruitment. We're looking in the foreign market. There was an interview before that said that we're after 4 or 5 signings. That was at the start of the season, and 4 of them were from the foreign market. Obviously, last season I look into it. From the foreign market, we brought in Mads Frokja, we brought in Militon Osmajic, and we brought in Liam Miller. All 3 that were big hitters. So like if you're spending 600 grand on a Icelandic centre midfielder who's been captained 21 times by Iceland, played 35 minutes against England about a month ago, comparing that against someone who's probably never played above the League 1 or League 2 level for the same price, it's a bit of a difference. So I feel like we're looking in the right areas, and if these foreign players are big hitters like we did with Mads Frokja, Liam Miller especially, and then hopefully Militon Osmajic, they'll have something good.
By the way, on a final note on Kean Best, I'm actually thinking, I reckon there's a world where he develops ahead of schedule and ends up becoming, because this time last year we weren't even talking about him, and then he had an incredible start to the season, and this year we're talking about he could make so I'm just wondering, like, I don't want to write off the possibility that he actually has a barnstorming pre-season and then doesn't get loaned out and actually becomes part of the squad and actually becomes a solution to the left wing back issue. So that's how I feel. I think there's a chance he might do
Well,
it.
Ryan Lowe was there was an interview that he's unsure whether Keane best position is left wing back or left centre half. For me, it's a left centre half.
Right.
I don't think he's. But then again, is it me just thinking, Liam Miller's a perfect left wing back because he's amazing on one-on-ones? Is that what Ryan Lowe wants? I'm not too sure. Obviously, he's got Robbie Brady, who plays at left wing back as well.
Yeah, Brady's such an injury risk. I don't think you can rely on him.
Exactly. So, who knows? Who knows where he'll play? For me, he's a left centre back. But then, as you mentioned there, if we do go and loan him out, where's he going to play? Is he going to play left back? Is he going to play? I doubt he'll play centre back at a League One, League Two side. Just get a League One side. That is, I'd expect him to get an EFL side definitely. I can't really see him being played at. I'll probably be seeing in a back four at left back, and then obviously the best transition for him there is left centre back rather than a wing back.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Ollie, what's the biggest reason for doubt?
I think the mentality.
Why mentality?
I don't think we believe that we can actually do it. I don't think the players believe they can do it. I don't especially in the core. I just don't. I don't think we have natural born winners in our side. I think that you need players that want that go out there and know they're going to win, know they're going to make playoffs, that they're going to make that final push, especially in the final running. So many times as Preston North End just faded away in the late April, the March. I think only like 2 times it's gone down to the final day, and we've missed out. And then obviously since 2005 we've not made the Championship playoffs. I think there needs to be some sort of change where there's more confidence built in, that we can make this push. Just got to hope that it comes now.
Do you think actually changing the profile of squad could be a step towards that? Because you've mentioned Ryan Lowe likes older players. Sometimes young players can come in and they're fearless. They're maybe not burdened by experience of the past, and they're just coming in with a kind of raw energy, and that they will just believe that they can do it.
Potentially. Yeah, it's a weird one. It's a season that I'm optimistic for in terms of how it is. Obviously we've had a change in captaincy. Ben Whiteman's gone into captain, and I watched a bit of some of his clips at Doncaster, and he seems a lot more comfortable, and I'm not too sure if there's like a leadership aspect that comes out of him when he is a captain.
Right.
But I feel like that could be a bit more motivational for him in terms of his performances. Obviously, he's been very consistent as Ben Whiteman. He's 7 out of 10 every week, but he can turn it on, and he could be, he can be a game changer for Preston North End when he wants to be. So who knows? A change of captaincy maybe might influence a different aspect on it. Obviously, Alan Brown was a fantastic captain for Preston North End, but he didn't strike me as what you probably look at in a captain, where you the leadership qualities. He was more of a quiet captain, I'd probably say,
or sort of like did it led by example kind of thing, sort of in the way he played.
Yeah, I think I'm not too sure. I thought Brown was a brilliant captain, but there's different qualities between him and Ben Whiteman. Obviously, both that are better for which. So maybe it's a change of mentality. I'm not too sure. I mean, obviously, there's been nothing said from Alan Brown. I'm not too sure where he's going to be going. And then obviously, there's not been any real statement put out about it. Obviously, besides the leaving statement. So.
Sure.
Who knows? So it may be a change of mentality. Just hopefully, we have that final push and the belief that we can make that final push.
Ollie, give me a number between 1 and 10 to denote your level of optimism for the season ahead.
If you asked me this before the two signings that we just made, which was like from Thursday, I'd have said about a 5. But it seems that we're making the right decisions again. So I'm going to stick with a 7 at the moment. And I'll give you a better optimism after we sign some wing backs and centre backs.
Then you'll be up to a 10.
It'll be more of an 8 or a 9.
Okay.
Once we finally get to that, just hopefully we made the right decisions in recruitment.
Let's hope so. Ollie, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Really appreciate your time. Everyone go check out the Butter Pie podcast. Fantastic insight on the Lilywhites. So everyone go get subscribed to that. You can also subscribe to EFL Debate on YouTube and on Spotify. Drop us a comment if you've watched this on YouTube to let me know how you think North End are gonna do in the Championship next season. Or if you've enjoyed this episode on Spotify, please leave us a review because that would help us out a lot. And we'll see you again here on EFL Debate for another summer deep dive very soon.